There's a brutal truth that nobody wants to hear. The people you save are often the first ones who will betray you. Not because they're evil, not because you chose wrong, but because your help awakened a fear in them, a fear they can't explain, a fear they'll eventually turn against. Alan Watts said that when you rescue someone, you force them to face the truth about their own weakness. And most people don't want to see that. So instead of gratitude, they give you distance. Instead of loyalty, they give you resentment. Instead of respect, they give you betrayal. Because the moment you save them, you become a mirror, a reminder of everything they couldn't do alone. And people destroy mirrors long before they destroy their illusions. So remember this: you didn't get betrayed because you helped. You got betrayed because they couldn't live with what your help revealed. Weak people don't hate strength. They hate being reminded of their own lack of it. When you step into their life as the one who carries, fixes, solves, rescues, you accidentally take a role they can't ever outperform. And that terrifies them. They begin to think, what if I lose this person? What if I can't repay them? What if they see how helpless I really am? Fear becomes shame. Shame becomes bitterness. Bitterness becomes betrayal. Alan Watts explained it this way: people resent the hands that lift them because those hands make them feel small. You didn't try to make them feel inferior. You didn't intend to take power, but help creates a hierarchy. Giver above, receiver below. And some people would rather destroy the ladder than climb it. So don't blame yourself when the ones you helped turn cold, distant, or disloyal. They aren't running from you. They're running from the version of themselves they saw in your presence. Ingratitude isn't ignorance. It's insecurity. People don't betray you because they forgot your kindness. They betray you because your kindness exposed them. It showed their dependence, their fragility, their inability to manage life alone. And for many, that truth is unbearable. So instead of saying, "Thank you," they rewrite the story in their mind. You didn't help me, you controlled me. You weren't generous, you were showing off. You weren't there for me. You wanted power over me. Because rewriting the story allows them to escape the weight of gratitude. Gratitude feels like debt. Debt feels like weakness. Betrayal becomes the illusion of freedom. As Alan Watts taught, the ego would rather burn a bridge than admit it needed to cross it. You're not the villain. You're the reason they saw the truth. And they'd rather lose you than lose the story they tell themselves. The rescuer's curse is simple. You give from your heart, and they receive from their wound. You think you're helping a person, but often you're helping their fears, their dysfunction, their unhealed self. And the unhealed don't love their rescuers. They depend on them. Dependence turns into pressure. Pressure turns into resentment. Resentment turns into betrayal. Every time you fix someone's chaos, you make them face the truth that they couldn't fix it themselves. And instead of admiring your strength, they feel insulted by it. Alan Watts said that people who cannot stand on their own will eventually hate the one they lean on. So you suffer first. Not because you loved wrong, but because you carried too much. You became their stability, and stability is never appreciated until it's gone. What hurts most is not the betrayal itself, but realizing that the person you protected was secretly preparing to drop you the moment they could stand. Here's the part almost nobody understands. People don't betray you to hurt you. They betray you to escape themselves. The moment someone helps another person, a psychological imbalance appears. One becomes strong, the other feels exposed. And exposure is unbearable for the insecure. So, betrayal becomes the easiest exit. It lets them distance themselves without ever facing the truth of their dependence. Alan Watts explained that the ego fears one thing above all: owing its transformation to someone else. Because if you were the one who lifted them, then deep down they know you could also be the one who leaves them. And the ego would rather destroy the connection than live with that vulnerability. So they cut you off before you can cut them off. They betray you before you can disappoint them. They break the bond before their wound feels breakable. In their mind, betrayal is freedom. In reality, it's fear wearing armor. There's a shift that happens, slow at first, then suddenly. One day they're thanking you. The next, they're questioning your motives. The next, they're irritated by your presence. And then, out of nowhere, you've become the villain in a story you paid to build. Why? Because the more you help someone, the more authority you accidentally hold over their life. Not authority you wanted, authority they feel. It makes them defensive, insecure, threatened. So they invent a story where you're the problem, because it's the only way they can protect their ego. Alan Watts said that the insecure mind must turn its benefactor into an oppressor to feel equal again. So they convince themselves you were manipulative, or controlling, or selfish, or fake, not because any of it is true, but because the truth makes them feel too small. They need you to be the villain so they can be the hero of their own escape. If you don't learn this part, the world will keep teaching it to you painfully. You cannot save people from the battles they refuse to fight. Helping someone who won't help themselves doesn't heal them. It burdens you. It drains your energy, your time, your empathy, your hope, all while feeding the very wound that will later turn against you. Alan Watts often said the deepest suffering comes from forcing growth on a mind that is not ready to grow. You can guide, you can inspire, you can support, but you can't carry someone who keeps breaking their own legs to stay in your arms. Saving people makes them dependent. Dependence makes them resentful. Resentment makes them disloyal. So stop trying to be the hero. Most people don't need saving. They need awakening, and that's something you can't do for them. Here is the truth Alan Watts would whisper after watching you give your soul to the wrong people. The betrayal wasn't your failure. Your self-abandonment was. You knew deep down that you were carrying too much. You felt the imbalance. You sensed the resentment. And yet, you stayed, believing that more giving would fix what giving caused. But betrayal has a purpose. It returns you to yourself. It shows you the boundary you never set, the self-love you postponed, the emotional labor you normalized, the role you were never meant to play. And now you rise differently, slower, sharper, more guarded, more aware. You stop offering rescue to anyone who hasn't rescued themselves. You stop giving loyalty to people who can't handle gratitude. You stop bleeding for those who would never bleed for you. Because the final lesson is this: the people you help first will often be the first to leave. But the person you become after they leave is someone who will never let it happen again.